All right, I want to get to this segment because the guest has to go, so I want to get to some information. So without dilly-dallying, we have Merlin Miller with us. Now, Merlin Miller is a graduate of West Point. He's an author of Our Vision for America, producer of Jericho, as well as a presidential candidate for one of the third parties. Merlin, we are going to have you back on to ask you questions about your candidacy and your party because I have questions about that. But I wanted you to get on for as much time as you possibly could today because something came to my attention and I want you to tell everybody about it. You met with the president of Iran, didn't you?
Yes, I did, Josh, and it's a pleasure to be on your show. And sorry for the shortness today. I've got a call from overseas, but I'm looking forward to coming back and hopefully being able to spend more time later this week or whenever can be convenient. But no, it was an exciting meeting I had with the president of Iran.
Okay, so like I said, we are going to have you back on. So I do want to offer you the opportunity to dig into the issues. But this Iran thing is really fascinating to me because here we are as a government heading towards what appears to be war with Iran, at least one of our allies is. And here you are as a pretty much a normal citizen. I mean, obviously you have some things on your resume that most of us don't have, but I didn't think it was possible for me just to call up Ahmadinejad and say, hey, guess what, I want to have a meeting with you. So how did this come about?
Well, it actually came about by my attending a Tehran International Film Festival. It was the first one which was really reaching out to the international community to be an alternative to Hollywood and the media as we get it from a Zionist-controlled environment. I gave a presentation at that festival and got to know a lot of the people and actually then gave a presentation in front of a crowd which included the president there for the festival group. And I think as a result of that, he took an interest and granted me a private audience, and then we did meet a couple of days later in his offices.
Now, what did that meeting revolve around? What were the topics of choice for you two?
Well, really, I think it almost served as a cultural bridging between our countries. He definitely impresses me as a man of peace and not the demon that is portrayed in our mainstream media here. And I think he's very concerned. I think this festival is an indication of Iran's concern for getting truths out to the world through media. And I think that seemed to be his interest, is that the Iranian people are being demonized unfairly, and they really are a nation that are seeking peaceful resolutions. And I was very much impressed with his demeanor in the meeting that I had with him.
So the other question I have is, was there any questioning by our government upon your return back home? Because I can't go to a raw milk festival without attracting about a half dozen cops. There had to be some sort of ramification or awareness on our government's part that you had this meeting with our sworn enemy, evidently. What's been the fallout since the meeting?
Well, strangely, there's been none. I had no problems coming back into the United States. Surprising to me. I kind of thought there would be some concern, consternation, but they really are not an enemy of ours. Our media has convinced the American people that they're supposed to be an enemy of ours, just as Iraq was prior to the invasion of Iraq. And this is just, to me, it's an obscene condemnation of another nation, and it's evil. And I do hope the American people can start to learning the truth that Iran is not our enemy. They should not be our enemy, and hopefully people in our government are starting to come to that conclusion.
Well, I have to ask you a question, not only as a presidential candidate, but also as somebody who graduated from West Point. Would it make sense to say to a nation, you're not allowed to have a nuclear device or nuclear technology, when in today's world they could just ask a number of their neighbors for a weapon and have one by noon tomorrow?
Well, true, and the hypocrisy is that the nation that's demanding this, of course, Israel has probably 300 nuclear weapons, are not signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, and are not open to inspections. And so they're demanding totally different standards of their rivals in the Mideast. So, no, it's totally wrong. And in my opinion, we shouldn't be violating the sovereignty of other nations and trying to dictate terms to them. We should be reaching out with peace and not with threats and sanctions.
Now, have you opened up any backdoor communication with Ahmadinejad? Because I know, maybe it's just my profession, but if I met with him, I would make sure I had a way to communicate with him again. Do you have the ability to communicate with him moving forward?
Well, we have a lot of friends now. We made a lot of contacts over there, and I do believe that should we have the right message, we could reach, in fact, the president of Iran easily. I think he's open to that. I think he's a leader that cares about peace and cares about his people. So I have no doubt that if we have the right messages and want to open a dialogue, that door will open.
Was there any problem for you getting into Iran? Because I would think it's almost like Cuba. You'd have to find an alternative route in. Is Iran really as open as it was for you? Can anybody just say, okay, yeah, I want to plan a vacation to Iran?
Well, you have to go through the process applying for a visa, and of course that's a cumbersome process, and I actually got my visa the day before leaving, so it was a very uncertain situation. But as far as traveling, it was not good routing. You have to go, I had to go through several connections, and it took me almost 40 hours to get there from the time I left my home. So the sanctions have made it difficult in a lot of ways, but not impossible. Any American citizen that wants to go to Iran can. They just have to go through this visa process, which is uncertain.
See, now, what you went through is completely different than what I thought it would be. I thought I would get a bunch of heat just on my application for a visa to go, and then upon my return, I would think I would go through, a 2-day, question and answer session. Who'd you meet with? What'd you do while you were there? And all that sort of thing. So it's definitely a different situation than what's being portrayed in the media. And your impression of him is that he doesn't want war, and he overall is of a peaceful character?
Yeah, I think it's an Islamic nation, and we also have the wrong interpretations of the Muslim religion, and I believe they're very much wanting peace. They are not fomenting these conflicts, and I just get the sensation that they are good people that are being misrepresented, and they want the truth out, that they are not the demons they're being portrayed to be.
Now, recently, our ambassador to Israel and the Israeli prime minister have gotten into some heated discussions, and it's even gone as far as what the media is calling a snub from our current president to the prime minister. What do you view as the push behind the urgency? Because I've been told, well, if we don't hit them soon, then we're going to miss our window. But like we just talked about, who cares? If they can just call China and say, hey, I want a nuke, we don't really have a window here. So what do you think is really the motivation? Is it the political election?
Well, no, I think it's Israel. I think they're trying to get a sense of urgency to this. It's part of their agenda, really, of controlling the environment in the Middle East. And just like Iraq and Afghanistan have destabilized things and have been to the benefit of Israel, any attack against Iran would do the same thing. So I'm fortunately proud to see some of our senior military people and senior intelligence people standing up and saying, this may be what Israel wants, but it certainly shouldn't be what America wants. And hopefully we'll start to go put America first again.
Well, even the former director of Mossad has come out and said, an attack like this is just stupid. So, Merlin Miller, thank you so much. I know you have to run. You have to make that call. I look forward to having you back on to talk about your party, your campaign, and a bunch of other issues. So I appreciate you joining us. Folks, we'll be back right after this.